After a dramatic turn of events in the heart of the jungle, a mother tigress found herself helpless and unable to protect her cub from danger. When all hope seemed lost, look who came to the rescue. What happened next will amaze you. A strange sound broke the usual calm, a muffled, desperate cry that seemed to come from somewhere deep in the jungle. This sound was unlike anything John had heard before. It had a haunting mix of anxiety and desperation. John paused his usual patrol and tilted his head, trying to determine the direction of the sound. It seemed to be coming from behind an old, twisted banyan tree at the edge of a swampy area. With each passing moment, the cries grew louder and more desperate. Driven by a mixture of curiosity and concern, John set aside his equipment and hurried towards the source of the sound, his heart pounding with fear and determination. As he approached the banyan tree, the undergrowth thinned, and the cries became clearer and more piercing. Pushing through the last thicket, John stumbled upon a scene that deeply shocked him. There, in a small, flooded clearing, a young tiger cub was floundering in the water, its attempts to stay afloat growing weaker with each second. The cub's eyes were filled with panic as it thrashed in the murky water, clearly on the verge of drowning. John froze. He knew tigers were dangerous, especially when injured or frightened, and that they were excellent swimmers. John wondered where its mother was and carefully scanned the dense jungle foliage for any signs of the tigress's presence. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering through the treetops, he noticed a glint of metal nearby. Moving closer, he discovered the mother tigress, her leg entangled in a poacher's chain that was secured to a sturdy tree. Her eyes were wide with panic and pain as she struggled against the chain, her attempts to reach her struggling cub thwarted by the cruel restraint. John's heart sank as he took in the scene. The mother was trapped, unable to help her cub, and now her roar was full of distress. He realized it was up to him to save the cub, and he needed to act quickly. Without wasting time, John cautiously approached the water's edge. He removed his shoes and rolled up his sleeves, preparing to enter the murky pool. His heart was racing as he stepped into the cold, muddy water, each step sending ripples across the small clearing. The water was deeper than it looked, soaking his clothes and chilling his skin. But he couldn't take his eyes off the struggling cub. Slowly extending his hand, John tried to calm the frightened cub with a gentle voice. "It's okay, little one," he murmured. The cub, sensing the presence of a rescuer, seemed to calm slightly, its frantic movements ceasing as John drew closer. Finally, within arm's reach, John lowered his hands into the water and carefully lifted the tiger cub. The young tiger was surprisingly light, its small body trembling from the cold. He carried it back to the shore, holding it close to his chest to warm and comfort it. Knowing he couldn't leave the mother in her condition, John cautiously approached her. He examined the chain and lock, considering how he could free her without causing additional distress. But before he could attempt to free the mother tigress, John heard the crunch of dry leaves and the approaching soft hum of voices. His heart sank as he realized the poachers were returning, possibly to check the trap they had set. He quickly assessed the situation, looking for a place to hide the cub and himself. The urgency of the situation called for quick and decisive action. John carefully placed the cub in dense undergrowth, making sure it was well hidden from casual glances. Then he took up a position where he could observe the approaching men while remaining unseen. From his vantage point, he saw two men in dirty, worn clothing, with rifles and a set of traps and chains slung over their shoulders. They were talking in low, gruff voices, occasionally laughing, clearly unaware of the rescuer's presence. As the poachers approached the tree where the mother tigress was chained, their conversation became audible. "Check that tiger first," one of the poachers ordered, pointing to the unfortunate animal. "Those hides can fetch a good price." John clenched his fists, his blood boiling at the casual cruelty of their words. He knew he had to remain calm and think strategically. Direct confrontation could be dangerous not only for him, but for the tigers as well. Instead, he watched their movements carefully, waiting for an opportunity to act without putting the animals or himself at even greater risk. The poachers approached the mother tigress, who growled and strained against the chain as they drew near. One of the men pulled out a set of keys, presumably to check the lock's security. Seeing this, John realized he might have a small chance to use the poachers' tools against them if he could distract them. He silently picked up a small pebble and tossed it into the bushes away from where the cub was hidden. The sound caught the poachers' attention, and they turned towards the noise, raising their rifles. "What was that?" one of them whispered. "Go check it out," said the other, nodding towards the source of the sound. As they turned away for a moment, John seized his chance. He moved quickly, keeping low and unseen, and made it to where the poachers had left their equipment on the ground. He quickly found a heavy wrench suitable for breaking the lock. Just as he was about to return to the tigress, he heard the poachers returning, having found nothing in the bushes. Realizing time was running out, John made a bold decision. He stepped out from his hiding place, holding the wrench in his hand, his face determined. "Leave this place," he said firmly, positioning himself between the poachers and the chained tigress, "and never come back." But the poacher merely laughed dismissively, a smirk playing on his lips as he sized up John's lone figure. "You think you can just scare us off like that?" He sneered, gripping his rifle tighter. "This is our territory, and that tiger," he pointed at the tigress, "is worth a fortune to us." John stood firm, the wrench in his hand not just a tool, but a symbol of his determination. "I won't let you take her. This ends now," he declared, and there was an authority in his voice that made the poachers falter for a moment. Noticing their hesitation, John seized the psychological advantage. "Look around you," he continued in a sharp tone. "Do you think you're the only ones watching what's happening here? Rangers patrol this area regularly, and it won't take them long to show up. Do you really want to risk getting caught?" The mention of rangers made the poachers exchange nervous glances. They were used to operating under the cover of secrecy, and the possibility of encountering law enforcement was a risk they hadn't expected to face so directly. "Leave now, and I won't report this," John added, bluffing to hasten their departure. "Stay, and you'll have to deal with more than just me." After a tense pause, the poacher with the rifle slowly lowered it, his eyes not leaving John. "It's not worth the trouble," he grudgingly muttered to his partner. Casting one last wary glance at John, the poachers retreated, disappearing into the thick undergrowth, their departure marked by the rustling of leaves. As soon as they were out of sight, John breathed a deep sigh, the tension falling from his shoulders. He slowly approached the tigress, speaking in a soothing tone to calm her. With careful movements, he unfastened the chain that had bound her, and as it fell to the ground with a clank, her muscles visibly relaxed. The tigress stepped forward cautiously, sniffing the air and her newfound freedom. Then she quickly made her way to where her cub was hidden, making soft, encouraging calls. The cub, hearing its mother's voice, emerged and rushed to her, their reunion marked by gentle nuzzling and purring. As he watched the tiger disappear into the safety of the jungle, John felt a surge of relief. He had done good work today. He wondered if he would ever see these majestic creatures again. Little did he know that his wish would soon come true. Several months had passed since John had freed the tigress from the poacher's chain. After the monsoon rains, the jungle had become lush. However, the danger lurking in the shadows remained. Poachers, driven by greed, still appeared, and the animals were always on guard. One foggy morning, John was walking through the dense jungle, conducting one of his regular patrols. The moisture-laden air clung to his skin, and the thick fog made visibility difficult. As he passed through a part of the jungle known for its ancient banyan trees, his keen eyes caught a barely noticeable disruption in the usual landscape, a small inconsistency indicating recent human activity. His heartbeat quickened as he followed the faint trail. The tracks were fresh, suggesting that the unwelcome visitors might still be nearby. As the fog began to lift slightly, John noticed a thin wisp of smoke rising into the air not far ahead, a sure sign of a camp. He crouched low, using the dense foliage as cover, and cautiously approached. The sounds from the camp were muffled by the jungle noise, but as he got closer, he could hear the low voices of people talking. John paused, assessing the situation. He was alone and unarmed, save for a small knife he carried for emergencies. Getting closer was dangerous, but he needed to know who was there and what they were doing. He crept forward carefully until he could make out an improvised camp through the bushes. There were 3 rough-looking men, focused on a small fire over which hung a pot with something bubbling. Around them were scattered various hunting implements, traps, nets, and a couple of rifles leaning against a tree. John's mind raced. He knew he had to act, but direct confrontation was too risky. Instead, he decided to slip away to report to the authorities later. Just as he was quietly backing away from the clearing, a twig snapped under his foot. A soft sound, but loud enough in the pre-dawn quiet. The men whirled around at the noise. John froze, his heart pounding in his chest. Realizing he had been spotted, he quickly calculated escape routes. As the men grabbed their rifles and ran towards him, the thick fog that had been a hindrance earlier now became his ally, obscuring his movements as he slipped deeper into the jungle. His path was narrow and his breathing heavy as he increased the distance between himself and the poachers. Just as he thought he was safe, a rough hand grabbed his shoulder, spun him around and pinned him against a tree. The suddenness of the attack knocked the wind out of him, and he struggled to regain his composure. One of the poachers, apparently the leader, sneered in his face. "Thought you could spy on us and just walk away, did you?" The grip on his arm was iron as the man twisted his wrist behind his back, pain flaring. They were furious, blaming him for their recent failures and losses due to his conservation efforts. As they tied his hands with rough ropes, one of the poachers hissed, "You've been a thorn in our side for too long. Time to get rid of you for good." Fear gripped John as he realized the gravity of his situation. The poachers dragged him deeper into the jungle, away from any trails that passers-by might see. John raced, scanning his surroundings for escape routes, but he was held tightly, and the poachers were on high alert. When they reached a secluded spot, the lead poacher raised his hand, signaling to stop. "This is far enough. No one will find him here," he said grimly. As John braced himself for the worst, a sudden rustle in the undergrowth caught everyone's attention. A formidable tigress emerged from the shadows. Her gaze was fixed on the men holding John. Over the months, she had not forgotten the man who had saved her, recognizing his scent and the sound of his voice. She approached silently but swiftly, her intentions clear. The poachers were caught off guard, fear crossing their faces as they saw the tigress. In their shock, their grip on John loosened for a moment, and he took advantage of this. He struggled, and they found it difficult to hold on to him. Sensing their distraction, the tigress seized the moment. With a powerful roar, she launched her attack. The poachers, stunned by the sudden threat, tried to flee, releasing their hold on John. As they ran away, the tigress positioned herself between the fleeing men and John, making sure they didn't make a second attempt to harm him. Once she was certain they had retreated, she turned her attention to John, who was now trying to untie the ropes. Approaching him cautiously, she gently nudged the ropes with her nose. John, understanding her intentions, allowed her to tear the bonds with her teeth. In a few moments, he was free. Standing up, he turned to face the tigress, his heart full of gratitude. "Thank you," he said quietly, hesitantly extending his hand. She looked at him silently, her gaze intense but calm. In that moment, a deep understanding passed between man and beast, a mutual recognition of the risk they had faced and the protection they had offered each other. As the rain continued to pour around them, washing away the traces of the encounter, they stood in silence, having become allies in the truest sense of the word. The moment passed. With a final nod to John, the tigress turned and slowly walked back into the dense jungle foliage, her debt repaid. The tiger's unexpected act and its resolute rebuke to the poachers would be forever etched in his memory. In the days that followed, John often found himself looking into the forest, thinking about the tigress. He knew she was out there somewhere. The connection that had been established between them once again showed him the incredible impact people can have when they choose to protect and cherish the natural world. The encounter with the tigress had been challenging, but also deeply rewarding. Her successful defense against the poachers and her heroic act were astounding. Every time John recalls this incident, he smiles, as in a fairy tale, no good deed goes unrewarded. Did you enjoy this story? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to not miss new releases. See you soon.